Reality is that, again, if you look at the rhetoric from Washington and Jerusalem after last year's war, it was full victory, that all the objectives were achieved. Iran's nuclear program was set back, Iran's missile program was degraded, and it appeared that the problem was put in the back burner for a long period of time. And yet we're at it again in 8 months. This time around, I think it really boils down to a simple fact. Israel and the US saw an opportunity in Iran being relatively weak and want to finish the job that was not finished last year. It is also important to note that based on international law, this is illegal. Based on US law, this is illegal because President Trump had to go to Congress to explain what are the objectives, why he believes that he needs to go to war with Iran again, and get authorization. None of this has happened. There's been no serious policy debate about this in the United States, and yet we're in the middle of another war, which could cost American lives and have implications for the region and beyond for another generation.
We saw during the negotiations that had been happening, the US and Israel raising concerns about Iran's nuclear program, its ballistics program, as well as, and also its support of proxy groups in the region. Do you think Iran could have compromised on those points with the US and Israel?
Look, it was unrealistic to expect Iran to capitulate to all of the US demands at the negotiating table. But as the foreign minister of Oman, who was in Washington yesterday and had a meeting with Vice President Vance and did engagement with the press in the US, explained, they were making good progress. I do believe that the Iranians should have been more flexible, but I also do believe that diplomacy needed a little bit more time, and there was a solution available that was much less costly for all sides than engaging in a risky gambit of war. Hoping that it would result in any kind of soft landing and a better situation. Look, these wars, especially when they cause a high number of civilian casualties, they also create instability, radicalization, terrorism, and the implications, again, could go well beyond the short-termism that we're all focused on. And at the end of the day, there is a tension between the rhetoric from Washington and Jerusalem and saying that Iran was weakened significantly, and yet there was such an imminent threat that it required another preemptive or preventative war against Iran.
Ali Vaez, Iran Project Director at the International Crisis Group, thank you for joining us on BBC News.
My pleasure.
Well, let's go to Jerusalem now and speak to our correspondent there, John Donison. John, what's the latest there?
Well, let's just recap the morning here. About, 40 minutes ago now, we awoke to the sound of sirens going off across Jerusalem and across Israel. This was apparently an initial warning, I suppose, to expect some sort of retaliation in the coming hours and days from the Iranians. We've had this statement from Israel's Defense Minister, Israel Katz, saying that a state of emergency has been declared across the country because Israel has carried out what he called a preemptive strike against Iran. Now, the Israeli media is reporting that this was a joint operation between the United States and the Israelis, and I've just seen an Israeli official quoted on Channel 12, one of the TV stations here, saying that this was 4 days, the start of 4 days of extensive strikes against the Iranians, and that following that, Iran would not look the same.